Interrupted a party.
You bully.
All right, call to order. Could everyone please rise for the invocation? And this time, would Riley Grandel please come forward?
If you'd join together with me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we come to this morning that in one spirit and one accord as we come to give you thanks and praise for this wonderful day that you've given us and for the blessings of this day. We ask your hand to be upon the government of this nation to guide and direct us, and Lord, especially upon those that have been chosen to guide this city. Lord, as we come together, let your hand be of protection upon those who serve us in the military and those that are our first responders. And Lord, just bless them and keep them safe. For we ask for your wisdom this day, that you come in wisdom and understanding for these here who would be making decisions for this city today. So Lord, let there be peace in this place as we just lift these things in the name of our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Councilman Slacka, could you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Be an honor, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh?
Here.
Councilwoman Martin? Here. Councilman Slakta?
Here.
Mayor Nelson?
Here.
Councilman Simmons?
Here.
Councilman Gibson?
Here.
Councilman Longcart?
Here.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mayor.
Okay, public comment on agenda items. That's agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item, please come forward.
Jude Reichenthal from Old Bonita, and I'd like to speak on agenda item about BSU. Let's see. BSU sells all of its irrigation water to RCS at below market price. RCS resells that for 5 times the price to a variety of people. According to my calculations, they gave away about $8 million to RCS, $8 million of our money to RCS in 2012. So my question to Mr. Strakansky is, why are we all subsidizing RCS and golf courses? If BSU contracted with RCS to sell potable water at 1/5 the retail market price, would we not call that malfeasance? Is this any different? I think not. Because the RCS figures are hidden in BSU financial statement. Because RCS stopped publishing their financial web results in 2006. Because their lawyers threaten a lawsuit against Ed and myself if we don't shut up about this. But if we are lying, then all they have to do is tell the truth. And if we are not, then are they not guilty of malfeasance? So BSU, publish the figures, Mr. Parton. Mr. Guilty, display the RCS figures on your website. What are you ashamed of? We cannot keep over-pumping our aquifers. They are already saline. South Florida Management District requires conservation through the use of more reclaimed water. The city of Naples has recently decided that the only way they can meet this requirement is by piping reclaimed irrigation water to all customers. BSU cannot be responsive to that requirement as long as its illegal contract with RCS stands. About 50% of our use is typically for irrigation. If BSU piped in reclaimed irrigation water, we would be paying about $2 per 1,000 gallons, not the $7.60 we are paying now. BSU stonewalls or misleads when we try to get critical information. Case in point, the graph of water sales gallons in their annual report. Even Debbie Bautista, their accountant, disavowed it in their annual meeting. I call upon the council to formally declare that the city is taking over the water and sewer function. The city can then lease back that function to BSU at $1 a year, but make it clear to BSU that this subjects them to Florida Statute 119, the Public Records Law, same as CH2M Hill. Let's tear down BSU's wall of secrecy and obfuscation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward. Any agenda item? I think Ron's coming this way. No, he's not. Okay. We'll say that the public comment portion of this meeting is over, and we are to proclamations and presentations. Just want you all to know that today is a very special day in so many ways. Diane reminded me that, 14 years ago, we had our very first city council meeting, almost to the day. Okay. Would you like to see what it looked like?
Yes.
Hit it. Bigger.
Call to order the meeting of the East Spring City Council. We could now have Jim Humphreys.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my honor to introduce the mayor and the council to proceed with this first meeting. Mayor Paul Pass, and indicate by saying present for the record. District 1, Wayne Edsall. Present. District 2, Jay Arin. Present. District 3, Robert Bob Wagner. Present. District 4, John Warfield. Present. District 5, David Piper. Present. And District 6, Ben Nelson Jr. Everyone present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And you are old.
I know, so old. So old.
At this time, introduce some very important people, some people who have helped us along a lot and are going to continue to help us. Thanks from the City Council for the City of Fort Myers Beach for offering up the services of Marcia Siegel George, the City Manager. She will serve as our honorary manager, as our honorary city attorney, Mr. Jim Humphreys, who served with the transition. Mr. Bob Critt, who was by proclamation has been donated until June the 15th by the City of Stanford as our city attorney. And his legal assistant, Diane Lynn, who is keeping notes and seeing everything that
Now, where are you, Diane?
Right over there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And but prior to doing that, if you will allow me, I'd also like to introduce Mr. Jim Yeager, the Lee County Attorney, who we're pleased to have with us today, and Mr. Walter McCarthy, the Director of Development Services, who is also with us today. In the proceeding to the next item on the agenda, the reading of the resolutions from the municipalities. Marcia, would you just like to start off with the Fort Myers Beach?
We had sent our resolution on earlier, and I don't have the formal resolution with us today, but we will present it at the second meeting, so that you'll have one for that meeting.
Thank you. And next, proclamation from the city of Fort Myers, Florida.
That's good.
Whereas the
Thank you.
community of Bonita Springs
Just scan in
Well-
on Diane again.
That's how it all started.
and where
And I would recommend anyone to, if you want to see how to start a city, don't watch that. But if you do want to see what you're going to get into, do watch about the first 3 meetings. It was there was a lot of things that went on there. A lot of things had to be done. So many ordinances had to be passed immediately, adopting a lot of the county's ordinances without even looking at them, because you were like, we don't have any rules or regulations right now. Well, I picked that one. That's the way it kind of went. So anyway, I thought you'd like that. Thank you very much. And you haven't changed a bit, Diane. You haven't. I have, though. I have a lot in many ways. Okay, right now we have a proclamation proclaiming April 26th as Comcast Care Days. Would Barbara Hagan, would you please come forward? Hello, come on up here. Hi, good to see you. And we're going to read this proclamation. Whereas Comcast supports the core American value of volunteerism through partnerships, grants, and volunteer activities that empower individuals and local community-based organizations, and whereas Comcast Cares Day as Comcast and NBC Universal's signature day of service that has become the nation's largest single-day corporate volunteer effort that brings employees, families, friends, and community partners together for a common purpose. And whereas Comcast remains an active, committed, and engaged member of the local Bonita Springs community, as demonstrated by its partnership with the Bonita Springs YMCA for Comcast Care Day during National Volunteer Month. And whereas Comcast is celebrating its 13th Comcast Cares Day and has reached important milestones, including 3 million volunteer hours and 500,000 volunteers since Cares Day has started in 2001. And whereas Comcast Cares Day promotes the spirit of corporate responsibility thanks to the hard work, dedication, and service of the 200 volunteers in Bonita Springs community, now therefore I, Ben Nelson Jr., Mayor of the City of Bonita Springs, proclaim April 26th as Comcast Cares Day. Thank you so much. Everyone, please give them a hand.
We also have a live.
Mayor Bill, why don't you come on up here? Get your photo.
Smile, Bill.
There you go. There you go. Thank you very much. Come on up. This is Mayor Bill Slaybaugh from the YMCA. Come forward. Great. Okay. Would you like to say something? Sure.
First of all, thank you. It's our honor, and Comcast Cares Day is just 1 year younger than the city of Bonita Springs. So this is our 13th year. It's our annual day of giving, and nationwide between Comcast and NBC Universal, our estimate is we'll have 80,000 volunteers, and it does fall during National Volunteer Month. And our good partner here, the YMCA, we are expecting 200 volunteers. The community is also invited. So anyone that would like to participate, we will be painting, cleaning up, I think painting a basketball court. We're doing all types of things that day. So it is the last Saturday of the month. And again, for anyone, families are invited, but anybody that would like to help us out. But again, thank you for the proclamation, the recognition. And it's delightful that we are a active member of the city of Bonita Springs.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Yes,
Go ahead.
on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Bonita Springs YMCA and the community, we want to thank you for choosing us, because the Bonita YMCA is everybody's YMCA. And just having a volunteer of, right now we have 164 people sign up, so getting closer to the 200 mark.
There's about 20, 30 more here.
So you can go on our website, Comcast website, and sign up. And this is going to be a fun day thanks to your initiative and your goodwill, and we appreciate it deeply. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, please give him another hand. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, now we have a presentation by the Small Business Development Center of Florida Gulf Coast University. Hey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, citizens and staff of Bonita Springs, it is my pleasure to report to you on the economic impact of the FSBDC at Florida Gulf Coast University for the year 2013 and the first quarter of 2014. As you may recall, almost 1 year ago, I came before you to announce that Cottage One is open for business. I was a brand new resident of this corner of paradise, and I was looking forward to having something to do in my retirement. Now, at this point in a presentation like this, it is customary for me to spew a whole bunch of statistics for the record, of course. I have chosen to provide you a written report instead, 2 pages, they're in your folder. I do wish to mention a few numbers that I measure myself by. In the first year of my tenure, I've assisted in creating 7 new businesses and the rescue of 1 more. Those have resulted in 25 new jobs and the savings of 7, which might have been lost to the territory. My clients have invested just over $225,000 of their own money, and local banks have had enough faith in those individuals to add another $250,000 for a total of over $575,000. I believe that's an acceptable job for someone who's supposed to be working 3 days a week in retirement. Just over 30 years ago, the reporting by my type of organization was permanently changed by our Methuselah president, that great communicator, Ronald Reagan. He realized that putting a face on the number helps us all understand. So allow me to try to follow his example. One of the births of a business I had the pleasure of facilitating is Momentum Brewhouse, a microbrewery which will open just east of here, City Hall, in early August. City staff and members of the council have demonstrated again, individually and as an organization, that Bonita Springs is easy to do business in and with. Our mutual client, Mr. and Mrs. Brian and Kate Hahn, are residents of the city, a young, vivacious, and energetic pair with vision and desire. And while I'm sorry that Mrs. Hahn could not join us this morning because she has decided to earn the family income during the startup phase of the brewery, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the co-owner, the president, the brewmaster of Momentum Brewery, Mr. Brian Hahn. Brian, would you please stand? Just to give you a hint of the scale of the Hahn's investment, the brewing equipment that will be installed alone costs over $100,000. Two banks were instrumental in assisting the Hahns with financing this venture: Wells Fargo Online and the Coconut Point branch of Iberia Bank. The total amount that the Hahns are putting at risk is just over $250,000. In my endeavors this past year, it has been a great pleasure to see how hard our local banks are working to assist economic growth in the environment that has been made rather difficult by increasing and increasingly interfering government regulation and oversight. I'll let the bankers explain the rest of that part. Our cooperation with lenders is one of the pleasures I have in my job. Another is cooperation we receive constantly from you, city government, from the Economic Development Council, the Chambers of Commerce, and our sister organization, SCORE. In words I might hear from either the mayor or Mr. Schwing, government light works, especially if we cooperate. Cooperation with the city extends to our education effort. This coming April 23rd, a week from today, and again one day in November, your Director of Development Services will co-present the seminar entitled Doing Business in Bonita Springs at the Lyles Hotel. The export expert, I invite you to say that 3 times quickly in a row. The export expert of FSBDC, Mr. Kevin Brady, will join our director, Dan Rogalski, at the May 6th Export Expo. Boy, I can pick him. At the Export Expo that was organized by the EDC and Ms. Christine Ross. The city is a brand sponsor for our Distinguished Entrepreneurs Dinner on May 21 at now our own Hyatt Regency Hotel. We will be awarding one business selected by impartial judges from among 29 nominees in a 5-county region. We will in the process also honor all individuals who have the courage to own and operate a business in our territory. The city at that dinner will be introduced to over 200 business people and will be represented, I hope, by our mayor and our city manager. Finally, members of the council, I would like to ask a favor of each of you. I have included in the package the current issue of Enterprise Florida's Florida Small Business Magazine. It is filled with information and suggestions that you may wish to have about the process of starting and operating a business in Florida. Please take some time to review it. Then, when you're done, when you feel you've gained the knowledge you want, please pass it on to a constituent who's considering opening a business. Of course, with good conscience and a certain amount of deceit, I have to request that you also pass on my contact information. With that request spoken, I wish to thank you for your time and attention this morning. I look forward to continued cooperation with each of you and with the city. Thank you very much, and if there are any questions, be delighted to answer them.
Thank you very much and nice work, and we really appreciate what you're doing for us, and I know that the business community out there appreciates your ability to work with everyone involved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, and at this time, we'll have a presentation by Jim Strapkansky. How did I do?
Very good. Strakansky is right.
Okay.
Good morning.
That's what I said, right? I don't know if I did or not. I don't even know. I can't even go. Jim, how you doing?
Good. We're happy to be here. This is the second time. We were here last October and gave you a little rundown, and we just want to give you a short rundown twice a year to let you know how we're doing and what we might be bringing to you in the next 6 months. And so I'm going to try and do that today. And recently, last time I came here as vice president, I was recently elected to be president. And here also today, you know some of these guys, right? Frank Lyles and Mr. Parton and Mr. Bachman. We also have Kim Hoskins, who's our relatively new manager of engineering, and Debbie Batista, who all you know, who handles our finance, and Lauren Williams, who does all the slides and tries to communicate with you.
Well, good. Well, I've been president of BSU before, so my condolences. So. And could you step up to the mic a little closer there? And that would be great. We want everybody to hear you.
Oops. Okay. Recently, we had an election, and I became president. I switched with Bob Bachman, who was president for 3 years. He became vice president. And I think you all know Hank, who's now the secretary, and Dave McKee, who's the treasurer. Now, one of the things I have to do is to thank Bob for being able to be president of a company that I think is in excellent shape right now. I think last time we told you how financially strong we were and everything, and that has continued to happen. If you looked at your newspapers recently, you would see that Standard & Poor's upgraded our rating. We went from a AA minus, which is still pretty good, to AA. And it's very seldom that a company of our size gets a AA rating. So that is really good, and it's going to help us. I think last time I mentioned we did a refinancing and got a very low interest rate of 1.26%, and everybody was happy with that. And this next year, we're going to be doing another refinancing, and hopefully this helps us to continue to get low interest rates, which of course turns into lower cost that we pass on to everybody. It's interesting in that Standard & Poor's in their write-up said a number of things that I want to mention. One is that in our area we have good population growth, strong wealth levels, and below average unemployment rates. So that's good for us. And with all the new housing developments coming in, we hope that we'll be able to sell a lot more water. We've had historically strong debt service coverage, which has helped us again with the banks, and we've had strong liquidity, and S&P expects that to remain strong. We've had a debt reduction plan, and everything is working out financially. In February, CliftonLarsonAllen finished off our audit report for the year, and all I can say about that is that what they said, we presented everything fairly, everything as clean as can be, and so we have an excellent audit report, no problems there. One of the things I wanted to bring up, we're working on a new system, an online payment system, and we talk about cost reduction. When you think about the cost of mailing out all the monthly bills and everything else like that, we can save about $1 a person, $1 a bill if everybody just does it online. And so we have a new system that's coming up. Hopefully it'll be operational by the end of the year. We have, or the end of the summer rather. We have a system now, but it isn't quite as good as the new one that they're working on. Okay, tariff changes. One of the things everybody always asks us about price increases and everything, we haven't had one for 3 years. And with our ability to refinance at lower rates and also cut costs in other places like having paperless billings and whatnot, we're hoping to not raise prices this coming year, and we're forecasting that we're not going to do that. There may be several small tariff changes that we're looking at. We're not sure we're going to do them, but we might bring them to you in the next 6 months. They're tiny things, so they're nothing really to look at. The other thing is we're planning to update our water and wastewater master plan this year. As you know, we have a tremendous amount of capital in the ground, and there's we really have to look at what's coming up in the future, what new pipes we need, what new facilities we need, and try and plan them way ahead of time. You know, when you build something now, it takes you 5 years to get it built if you have to build it by the time you get permits and then do the engineering and everything else like that. So we have a group of people that's looking at the plan, and hopefully we can keep on supplying everybody in the future. When we talk about water, right now we have plenty of water, so any of these new housing developments and everything, we can supply them very nicely, no problem. Okay, now I think an email was sent to you asking if you had any questions that you wanted covered. And the only question we got back was about the RCS deal. And I could do that, but we're going to let Fred do that, and then you can beat up on him, okay?
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. First, I want to give you a little bit of background. The utility started back in the early 70s to provide drinking water to the community. And it wasn't until the mid to late 80s they recognized with the growth that we faced in this community, we needed to do something with sewers. We had, at that time, nearly 50 package plants, nearly 5,000 septic tanks, and it's becoming more of an issue. We had a Bonita Bay startup, which they already had their wastewater facility, and really gave us an opportunity to go into the wastewater business in a responsible way. So we've done a great job since then. We've eliminated almost all of the package plants. There's only 2 or 3 left, and there's probably about 1,000 septic tanks left in the community, but generally they're on estate-sized lots and not feasible to serve at this time. The background on the wastewater facility, the West plant, which you're familiar with on Old 41 near Strike Lane, is a 7 million gallon per day facility. That was a facility that was originally was owned by Bonita Bay and provided reuse water to the Bonita Bay community. We added the East plant, which you see on I-75 as you're going by on the east side, and that currently has a 4 million gallon per day capacity. And currently we're serving over 40,000 wastewater customers. We're not 100% with the wastewater. You still have Citrus Park, you have Hunter's Ridge, and then a few septic tanks out there. As part of the permitting process to have a reclaimed wastewater system, you have to have a customer base. What are you going to do with that reused water? And you have to have a contractual commitment for that water before you receive your permit, and you can proceed with expansions. And
we entered into, when we bought the Bonita Bay system, they committed to the initial early phases from that facility to their community, because they already had the pipes in the ground. They had the lined ponds to store the water, and basically they had all of the lines, the pumps, the lakes, the manpower to read the meters, to do the billing, things like that for their own system. So they really started out with that. That was something that we did not have to provide. Otherwise, we would have had to have put in all this infrastructure. And historically, in the wastewater business, you would see them pumping water into a river, a lake, drain field system, many different ways. But in recent decades, people are reusing the water. They see the value, because every gallon that you save through reuse, you're eliminating from withdrawal from your groundwater resources, which you're trying to preserve and protect. The RCS agreement is a 30-year rolling agreement. So each year, 1 year is added to that agreement. So we're committed to them for that. They receive 100% of the effluent from the west plant, which would be 7 million gallons per day. And they receive the first 2 million gallons from the east plant, and optional 2 million gallons at our discretion. So at some point, will the demands be greater than that? Yes. At build out, we anticipate it will. How much? That's why we're updating the master plans, quite frankly, so we have a better idea where we'll be at build out. The rate that we charge RCS is based upon the average rates charged by Lee County and Carter County utilities. They have reuse systems. I don't know that they're 100% reuse, but that was the best indicator we had back at that time to follow. And so we have followed that over the years. There's been representations about we give away $7 to $8 million per year. The basis is that we generate 10 to 15 million gallons per day of reclaimed water, and that we're selling it at 34 cents per thousand. Further, they say that RCS sells all that water at $1.75 per thousand, which generates this excess amount, $7 to $8 million. That's definitely not the case. The average in 2013 was 4 million gallons per day. We sell that at 34 cents per thousand, and that's a little over $500,000 per year. Get my water. So we generate a little over $500,000 per year from RCS, and that's reasonable. A lot of your utilities in the area, they some of them give away the water. They just need a customer base to get rid of it. Others sell it for a little bit more, others less. But again, our average is based upon Lee County and Carter County. RCS's rates, we understand, is based upon $1.51 per thousand gallons for allowable usage. And that's given a typical lot. They're allocated so much water per month in that system. If they exceed that amount, then they pay $2.31 per thousand gallons. Now, I'll point out that the water provided to the residential is a combination of reclaimed water and also reuse water. It's not 100% reuse, so don't get the idea that everything is 100% reuse. I think you'll have a better understanding of that in a second. For golf courses, which is a large customer base for the water reuse system, for well-filled water only is 53 cents per thousand gallons and 71 cents per thousand gallons if it's well and reclaimed water. So I do charge more for the reclaimed water. And the basis of that, I speculate, is that if we go under restrictions, the reuse water, they can continue using that amount. But they cannot supplement that
water with well water, whereas the district may restrict it down to 1 day a week, shorter hours, et cetera. If you have reuse water, you're going to be able to water a little bit more than somebody that doesn't have any reuse water available to them. So that's the net justification for that little bit extra charge. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about irrigation in the community. It's something that we looked at back at the same time we started the wastewater system, quite frankly. Early discussions began, and Ben probably remembers that. We looked at what would it take. We know that there's not going to be enough reuse water to provide the community with irrigation water because it's just a small fraction. The reality is it was estimated back in the mid-90s that our irrigation demands in the Bonita Springs area would be 25 to 30 million gallons per day. And that was at that time. We've had a lot of growth. That did not include Old Bonita area. Again, at that time, what we were looking at is how can we get the most bang for our buck if we put the system together, target communities that already had irrigation systems, golf courses, customers like that. The only way it made sense, since we're not going to generate enough wastewater to provide that, to build out of the wastewater system, at most is going to be 16 to 18 million. So you're going to be short approximately 50%, close to 50% at build out. And you're only going to see those maximum flows during the winter time when you have all the people down using water, and it's only going to be for a month or two. For the balance of the year, you're going to be definitely less than that, and so you have to supplement that water with well water. The other method, or kind of obvious alternative, would be to pull the water out of the Kiel Canal during the summertime when it's flowing unabated into the Imperial River and into the bay, and slightly treat it, and then put it in a well, basically an ASR well, Aquifer Storage and Recovery. What you're doing with ASR is you're pumping water into a deep aquifer system. You're displacing the natural water with this surface water, and you create a bubble. And what occurs, you pump it down, you create the bubble, and you're able to pull water back out. And the bubble is going to actually fluctuate based upon how much water you're putting down and pulling out and putting down. We tried an ASR system. In fact, there on Imperial Parkway where you see the tank and the flagpole, that originally was targeted as an ASR system. It didn't work. The geography for this area did not, it just did not work. Basically, I kind of think of it, and it was described to me as it's kind of like Swiss cheese that had holes run throughout. So you put the water down, it was escaping. And so we never confined it. The good news is it is our most productive well in our system that we use for our RO system. So, you know, it worked out very well for the utility that we were able to convert that ASR well into a production well. So we're very fortunate in that regard. But again, it just didn't work. The second part of the ASR consideration was that they found by injecting the water down in there, it's oxygenated water. The water that's down there is void of oxygen. And it was leaching arsenic as they were pulling the water back out. So that's a contaminant. You're not allowed to do that. You have to treat that water. That in itself prevented us from moving forward with ASR, even if the other part had worked. You know, because we could dig other wells and try it. It may or may not work, but the arsenic was kind of a deal killer. So the thought of doing a separate irrigation system providing supplemental water just is not feasible or practical. And again, the reclaimed water is not abundant enough to provide the entire area with the capital cost. You could spend $25, $50 million in infrastructure running pipes throughout the community. You would have to rely upon wells. You know, it's a major undertaking. And one of the things that people don't consider in some of these golf courses, they've developed the wells, they pump into their own ponds or into their own distribution system, and it generally works pretty good. What they get concerned about is when they have restrictions. They don't like that, so they think, what are our options?
oh, if we had reused water, that's the answer. Well, it's very costly. And the reality is their costs after the initial capital costs of developing the wells and distribution system are probably less than 10, 15 cents per 1,000 gallons. If we had to install this system, for us just to break even, we'd be looking at $1 to $1.50 in all likelihood. Again, this report was done back in the mid-90s, so that would need to be updated and see what it would cost today if we were to consider that. And so at this point in time, I'd like to open it up to any questions you may have of Jim or myself.
Council, any questions for Fred? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Fred, I'm not that familiar with ASRs, but how deep is that?
It varies upon the area. Sometimes the well that we drilled, I want to say, was like 3,500 feet, plus or minus a little bit.
Wow.
And they vary just depending upon the geologic conditions down below. What you want is a confined aquifer, one that you're able to put it down and it's contained by structure above, structure below, and you create the bubble.
And you mentioned about the arsenic. Where does that come from?
It's natural.
It's just natural?
Yeah, it's natural.
Okay.
In the soils down below, when you introduce the oxygen, my understanding is then it releases into the water that you're removing.
Okay. And my final question, Jim, I want to thank you very much. I always enjoy your presentations, but the AA minus to the AA, you mentioned there were 3 areas there, depth reduction, all that. That is the major, those 3 issues were the major issues why you went up to a AA?
Yes, Debbie?
Yeah, I'll answer it, and then I'll have Debbie come in and clean up if I don't hit it correctly. Yeah, they look at us periodically. It was not something we asked for, but periodically they take a look at the company. The review lasts about 6 months. They ask different questions. They interview staff, and then they meet as a committee. And these were the strengths that he pointed out that they felt was to our benefit and justified improving our rating.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
The 34 cents per 1,000 gallons, was that rate agreed upon in the beginning? Has it changed over time?
Yes, sir. Let me grab my notes on that. The initial rate back in 1991 was 15 cents per 1,000 gallons for the first 2 million gallons per day. Then it went up to 25 cents per 1,000. In 94, we increased the capacity to 4.5 million gallons per day. And it wasn't until, and we had several expansions, and the expansions were in like 2.5 million gallons per increments over time. In 2006, we increased the charge for all the reclaimed water to 27 cents per 1,000 gallons. And again, that was based upon average of the other utilities. Because what happened, a lot of those utilities gave away the water, or they would pay $100 a year to receive X amount of gallons for the year for these golf courses, because the utility was trying to get rid of the water. They were trying to, in Naples, they were pumping into the Gordon River, and they were trying to get away from that and reuse the water. In 2012, we increased that to 34 cents per 1,000. And this year, it's going to go into effect here in the next month or two. We'll go up to 43 cents per 1,000 gallons. Again, that's based upon adjustments in the rates for Curry County and Lee County utilities.
So it's based on like market rates?
Absolutely, yes.
And is RCS using 100% of your capacity right now?
Yes, they are, yeah. We have no other users. And the reason is it's not cost effective for somebody to run a pipeline. Not only do you have to pick the water up from our door, but you have to provide 3 times the capacity that you're committing to in rain day storage. What that means, if you take 1 million gallons per day when we have it, you're going to have 3 million gallons of storage for that water. Because when it's raining outside in the summer and everything's saturated, I'm going to send it to you, and you need to be able to do something with it. That's not necessarily our requirement. It's a requirement by DEP. And we pass that cost on to the recipient of that reused water instead of bearing that burden ourselves.
And is this an exclusive deal with RCS? I thought I read somewhere that you guys are open to somebody else doing it as long as
You know
they
what?
provided all the infrastructure.
I had on the slides what the understanding was, the 100% from the west plant and the additional on the east plant, but I can tell you that it's not going to be practical for an entity to make the investment to go all the way up to our east plant and pick that up, because it may be 10, 15, 20 years before you see any kind of return on that investment. And you don't get a drop until we meet our obligations. It's just real tough. Again, they were in the right place, the right time. They started it out correctly. When others, quite frankly, I spent a year and a half to 2 years negotiating with major developers right at my door and could not come to the same terms that I had with RCS.
Okay,
And it
but
was unfortunate.
it's not a closed door, though. If somebody did want to do it, they could do it.
They could have, yeah, but it's not going to be practical.
Well, and I think that's worth elaborating on, because one of the other larger developers, they did weigh that option. We were in contract negotiations with them for quite some time with that, and as they went through, we got real close to that, because they have to dig the lakes, line the lakes, put in the infrastructure, do all that. And so they weighed that with, oh, well, what would it cost us to just drill wells? And in, you know, what we tried to get the water management district at that time, is there a way to make, it was a waste. Is there a way to make them, don't give them their permit for the wells, make them take this water because it's the best thing for everybody? They wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And so people would actually, you know, I guess weigh the cost of it out, and they just say, no, it's cheaper for us to drill wells than just to do that. And that way they don't have to take, because, I mean, that becomes a pretty big deal when it becomes wet season and you have to take, that's millions of gallons of effluent, and your neighborhood and your everything is flooded already, and they're wondering, what are you doing taking all this water out? You have to.
And they probably currently with the RCS, I've got to give you a guesstimate on this. During season, when they're using the maximum amount or the most amount due to lack of rain, et cetera, the reuse water is only providing maybe 30, 40% of their overall demand in their communities. So it's nowhere near being 100%. They have indicated that they're receptive to selling water to others. In fact, they sell water to the city of Bonita for some of the medians, I understand. I believe there's a couple of other little communities and areas that they serve. But yeah, the easiest thing would be get it from them if they have a pipe right there. You're going to save a lot of those costs involved in running to our east plant and building the lakes and, you know, the pumps, and it's very costly.
And to further elaborate on that, the reason that it's so difficult for BSU to say, okay, we're going to start a system to where we're going to serve the public, is because then you would have to put in the wet weather storage.
You're absolutely right.
You would have to put in that part of the infrastructure.
Yeah,
That's
and
what runs the cost
I would
up.
just note to you, if you come up Goodlet Road to Immokalee Road heading north, on the right-hand side, you see the Carter County wastewater facility, and all those ponds on the right-hand side, they're massive. That's they're lined, and the bulk of those are reused, my understanding.
Yep. Go ahead,
If
Mike.
it does become cost-effective in the future, though, another community could ask for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to them. I've talked with different communities numerous times over the years. They're always interested, especially when South Florida imposes greater restrictions and cuts back on their allocations. 20 years ago, we had the restrictions, but they were not cutting back on the allocation, so they were not as compelled to come try to work something out. Otherwise, I think we would have seen some of the other major developers come in and negotiate with us and take on some of the same obligations that Bonita Bay did. But they didn't. Today, I think the communities get interested when they're cut back. They're concerned about the damage to their fairways and their investment in their courses, and that's what it comes down to. They use a lot of water.
Good. Pete, and then I'll come over to you, Steve.
Good morning. In years past, there was some discussion about vehicle use after hours. And has that changed at all? How many company vehicles do you have, and are they still used after hours? And I know there's a chuckle, I get it, but, you know, I have heard that again.
Yes, I
Has
use a
that policy
vehicle.
changed, or is that consistent?
No, we're consistent. I mean, we have certain key people that have vehicles that we provide vehicles to because we want them to be able to respond 24/7, myself included. Yeah. I mean, we don't have everybody driving vehicles home.
How many company vehicles are there?
I want to say 40, 50. Debbie, do you have any idea? I'm told close to 70.
And how many are 24/7 use?
Oh, probably 4, 5.
Okay, thank you.
And mainly on-call people?
No, mainly it's key people
Okay.
like myself.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, thanks. Steve?
Yeah, it's not unusual, though, for you to find new customers for reused water, aren't you? Didn't you just do a piece with the Pelican's Nest and the Pelican Landing folks? Are you in the process?
Actually, yeah, I really don't want to go into details.
Okay, that's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
But it's not unusual. If you can make it work, if the
Yes.
customer has the infrastructure to make it work, you can make it work.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I guess one of the things that I'm comfortable with, this is a really a nice, it's an example of a public-private partnership that's worked well for the city. You know, I know you're criticized a lot of times about rates and costs, and that's fair. I mean, public needs to make sure that they're getting what they're paying for at a reasonable price. But what we don't hear is people complaining about the sewers running through the city, that their toilets don't flush, that we have constant water alerts where we have to boil the water. So, you know, for the safety and the quality of life of the city, regardless of obviously the things you get criticized about, we have had a relationship, and the city has profited from having a relationship with this. So we do thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Okay. Any other comments? Bill?
Yes. Could we go back to the reclaimed water agreement between BSU and RCS on the screen, please? I'll put the lights down for you. Fred, my first question is, can you clarify on that sheet, you said that there's an average cost for reclaimed water in Lee County. Do you know what that is? We know it's 34 cents to the company, but what is the average?
For Lee County, Debbie, you communicated with them. Do you recall what that amount was? Yeah, she said 52, 53 cents. Okay. But I've got to point out, Lee County and Carter County have different customers, and some are paying more than others. And there's a variation, so we have to come to an average on that. Again, some of these agreements with some of these reuse customers date back 20 years, and some of the water, they're just now ending the contractual obligation, so they're going to be increasing their rates in the foreseeable future. And there was a comment made earlier about reused water being provided to all the city of Naples. That's certainly not the case.
Okay, and on the left-hand side of the page, the last question, RCS sells its water at $1.75 per 1,000 gallons. So if we look to the right side, the truth, it looks like it's $1.51, and then it could go as high as $2.31.
Yeah, if they go over the allowable allocation for their size property.
So the $1.75 may be pretty close to.
Yeah,
if you took,
I don't know where that came from. Yeah.
I think the other question I have, right now we have two package plants, main package plants. You have Citrus Park and you have Hunter's Ridge Golf Club. Is there a reason or reasons why they have never come into the system?
Well, let me point out our successes. We've eliminated over 40 package plants from the communities. Most recently and it's still in operation, is Fountain Lakes, which is outside the city limits, but still a major impact upon part of our community and impact upon our natural resources. We've acquired that system. We're in the process of making improvements to the system, and we'll dismantle that facility in the next year or two. So we're very pleased with that. With Hunter's Ridge, every 2 or 3 years they approach me and want to talk about the possibilities of hooking up to BSU, and then I never hear from them again. And that's occurred several times in the past. They do reuse their water. I give them credit in that regard. And I don't know of any other small package plants that did that. in the area. So I do give them credit, but we're ready and able to provide service to them when they're ready. Citrus Park, we've talked to them several times over the years. They come to the table and then they walk away, and we're not able to work it out.
Well, one of the questions that I get is when you install new, for example, let's talk about all the way out east, Bonita National. You'll be installing water lines out there, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, the question is, why wouldn't you have a way to bring another line to take the reclaimed water back to? They're trying to say you should be doing that at installation. And
Well, it's more that you're indicating that having a piece of pipe in the ground is the answer to everything.
No, the
Well,
answer. That's why I'm talking to you.
Yeah, and it's not. You need to have the water. Again, with what we're providing to RCS, it's only providing 30, maybe 40% of their demands on a daily basis, and they're taking 100% right now of our water. In the future, at build-out, we will have some more. What I found from 32 years of experience with this utility is for every $2 you spend on the future in anticipation of something, you're lucky to get back 25 cents in actual, because of changes in the area. It's not it didn't turn out the way you thought it would for whatever reason.
And can you tell me where RCS is located?
Their offices?
Yes.
Is that on Coconut Road? Yeah, I believe
They're local then?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were on Old 41, and then they moved their offices over to Coconut Road area. It escapes me the name of the
That's okay.
the facility there.
Coconut Road.
It's in the Brooks, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, Fred, I don't know if you can answer this or not, or want to answer it, but what is how would you describe the quality of water at Citrus Park and Hunter's Ridge?
Wow. I'd rather not. Because I don't have personal knowledge. My understanding that they've built a new RO plant. I don't know if it's in operation.
Well, I know some people that live there. They're not too happy with the
I
water.
wouldn't be either if I lived there.
Fred, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And it's very, very enlightening. Oh, did you have something else, Mike?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. I
one more
apologize.
question. You said to rerun reclaimed water pipes in the 90s. It was 25 million, I believe. But now, if RCS is selling the water for average of 175, and they're making between 6.4 and 9.6 million a year, wouldn't that be good enough to warrant that investment?
Well, yeah, but what you have to consider, that 6.4 to 9.6 million is based upon 10 to 15 million gallons a day of reclaimed water. Our average last year was 4 million gallons. That's a big difference. You can't get there from here.
Okay, so those figures wouldn't.
They just pulled those figures out and threw it up there.
What would it be per year, based on the?
Well, you could do the basis at the 4 million gallons per year. You can run the calculations at the $1.51. I don't know what the mix is as far as how much is sold to golf courses and how much is sold to the residential. I don't have personal knowledge of that.
Fred, is the RCS, are they regulated by the Public Service Commission?
No.
No, they're not, because they're private utility or, yeah.
Yeah, to my understanding is there's no legislation requiring them to be regulated.
Regulated, yeah, right.
So,
but the cost, they're not just simply just taking water and just going and passing it on. They have a facility in there where they have to blend the water. They have
major investment. It's a major investment that they've made.
So they're paying for property
and they do benefit from that,
taxes,
rightfully so.
And they are a business and they make a profit.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Ben, I'm not
Thank you.
finished.
Yes, go ahead.
One more question, please. Who negotiates the contract with RSW from your staff, and how many of them are from the other company that you sell the water to?
Well, it goes back. We really don't go into negotiations until we're going through an expansion and negotiating that next level of commitment from them. I've always been involved. Usually it's a committee of the board of directors of BSU, and generally it's one or two people from RCS. It's been different individuals over the years.
And just one suggestion, since the rate is 34 cents, and you just told me, or she was kind enough to say 52 or 53 cents, wouldn't it make sense in your next negotiation that you would allow yourselves the opportunity to increase the cost to RCS to a reasonable amount comparable to what's going on in the county?
Yeah, well, that's what we do.
Well, you went from 28 cents to 34
Yeah, we're now we're going up to 43 cents. Again, it's based upon the average of Lee County and Carter County. So when they increase, we can do it once a year, and we'll look at it every year. And when we get their rates, then we will adjust.
Well, if Lee County is 53 cents and you're at 34, there's a 20-30% difference cost. It's a big number, and I think that under the circumstances that we have in the community with all the new construction that you're going to have and the benefit that's going to come to the utility, it makes sense to be reasonable, and they should be also because of the deal that they have. It's a pretty good deal. If I was
you know what,
stockholder, I'd like
RCS,
that.
this has worked to RCS's advantage, and it's worked to BSU and its members' advantage, what we have. They have stepped up to the plate where other communities have not been willing to do that, and we would have invested tens of millions of dollars had they not done that. So we're very fortunate.
I understand, but it's if there's some perception in the public, which sometimes perception is reality, that we would like the utility to participate more actively, increasing the return to the utility and to the customers that you have. And by the way, are we over 42,000 customers yet? Are we getting close?
On the wastewater customers?
No, the number of people you serve with water. We had 41,900 was your last time we talked.
Yeah, we probably are. I would venture to say we probably are.
One more question, which doesn't really, how many do you anticipate in 2014 by the end of the year? Do you think another 300?
I think we're using a number of about 2%, 2 to 3%.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to also point out that it's kind of the nature of those negotiations is that whenever they're going to do a plant expansion, one of the first thing they have to do is find somebody who will take the reuse water.
Absolutely.
And who will provide wet weather storage. And so if somebody comes up to bat for that, it's an easy negotiation to make. Well, this guy's going to take it for this. You got negotiation leverage. If there's only one person who's willing to take that wet weather storage, it's not much of a negotiation posture that you can have there. And so it works out pretty well, especially when they can drill wells and pull the water out of the ground cheaper themselves.
For a fraction.
For a fraction of what that costs. So
That's correct.
it's really been beneficial to everyone. And if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and cut you loose.
Thank you once
Do you
again.
have anything else?
It's a pleasure to be here today, and look forward to the future.
Thank you for all your good work. And Bill, could you hit the lights again for us, please?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now we have to consider recommendations from the Technology Advisory Board. Who we got to come up here for? Oh, is this Dr. Steve?
No.
Mike Sokol? Mike, how you
Good
doing?
morning. Good morning, Your Honor, honorable members of the council. I'm Mike Sokol. I am the council-appointed chair for the Technology Advisory Board, and we appear before you usually once, possibly twice a year, as we develop some of the recommendations for technology that would be of benefit to the city of Bonita Springs. And if I could, for just a moment, introduce a couple of people who are here from our committee as well. We have Ike Lichtenstein, who is our vice chair of the committee. We have Vince Marchesne, who is a new member of our committee, Jim Kaufman, who I see here as well. I'm not sure if present, Mr. Tim Deaton is here. Also on our committee is Jane Hess and Herman Prado. For the first time, I can tell council that we have a full complement of 7 members on our committee, which goes a long way towards explaining why we have 8 areas that we're recommending. We have 7 committee members, but we have 8 different recommendations that would be in your meeting packet and part of the green sheet, and then the attachments. I won't go through all of them with you. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them before the meeting. But if you have any questions, myself or the other committee members might be able to address them for you.
Okay. All right, good. Why don't you do us a favor for the benefit of the public, just summarize the 8 different ones, just very briefly.
All right. Not in any particular order other than they appear on the green sheet. Potential partnering opportunities, partnering with other organizations or entities that are also involved with technology. The second one is social media and public participation. Third one, alternate energy sources, including solar. The fourth is transportation and transit. The fifth is internal city operations / software specifications. The sixth is internal city operations / minimization of risk. Seventh is broadband. And eight, we are trying to work with the library committee in developing recommendations for technology at a library facility within the city.
Okay. Well, good. Council, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the first one, I noticed there was a C-Click Fix. Is that an app for a phone? If somebody sees something wrong in this community, they can take a picture and automatically gets emailed?
That is actually not my area of expertise, but I understand it to be an app that would be available for most mobile phones.
The other thing was the charging stations for electric vehicles. I've noticed them going up in a lot of different places, but I've yet to see a car ever plugged into one. So I'm not sure if that's something we'd really, I want to see, if it's going to be used first and, what it's costing the other places that are using them.
And we're very aware of our role as an advisory board, and so we've even had some of that discussion within the committee itself as far as whether it's a government function or perhaps a private function. But we also would like to have council perhaps look at opportunities for encouraging private entities to possibly provide services like that going forward, should there be a business case for it.
Okay. Kind of explain, if you would, before Mike goes on, Mike and Mike, the nature of these are pretty general in scope. These recommendations is that the council takes into consideration in the future of doing certain things. They're pretty broad-based, but it's not like we're adopting these at this time or certain.
No. What we're trying to do is avoid spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
We don't want to go down a path with council saying, well, that's not really where we want to be.
Right.
We don't even want to consider that. So rather than just going off and working on things and telling you what to do, we thought that we would come before you, tell you that these are areas that we have different members of our committee who are interested in that involve technology that could be potentially a benefit to the council and to the city. And if you want us to go ahead, then we'll go ahead with this.
And you could quite well come back to us and go, you know what, this was a dead end. We don't think you should do that.
Right. We'll only come back with recommendations, and then the council decides whether or not they wish to proceed.
I got it.
May I also point out, we have the distinct pleasure of working with city staff, John Gucciardo, who helps to keep us on track, and also very important, our council liaison, Dr. Steve, who I would assume in between our appearances probably informs you to some extent as far as what we're doing. But we're not just off on a tangent. We actually try to be very focused and try to make sure we're doing things that council and the city would benefit from.
So on the green sheet, when it says accept the recommendations, it's all we're doing is saying to you, go ahead and take a look at these things, bring us back more information on them.
Yes.
Is that it, right? Okay, good. Mike, what else you got?
Well, it was just going to be the solar issue, but as long as they're just recommendations. I don't see solar as being a real big. I noticed that there's a lot. You don't really get the return on investment that a lot of people think you get. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't focusing too much on that.
Yeah.
But I do like the C-Click Fix, so I'd like to hear more about that.
Do you need a motion on this, Mayor?
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me get Carl in here.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I just have to tell you that it is staff's pleasure to work with this committee. They have, their members come from different backgrounds, but still have an interest in technology. We've used them a lot in a variety of different issues with regards to city operations in the past. We look forward to hopefully this expanded role so that we might be able to benefit from their expertise in some of these additional areas as well. Councilmember Gibson talking about a particular app for smartphones. I will tell you that we're already starting to look at that. We would love to have the committee's take on that, but I will tell you that we need to be careful about making sure that we have the infrastructure in place back here so that we can respond appropriately and in a timely fashion when we actually do get communications from smartphones out in the field. And we need to work through some of those issues as well. So but that is on our radar screen, Councilmember.
Yeah, that comes under the hang, be careful what you ask for, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. What's your pleasure?
Yeah, quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to compliment and thank the members of the board, the advisory board. They look like geeks, but they're really pretty commonsensical people. The great thing about that committee is they've been able to put a long-term perspective on technology for this city. And it's not about immediacy, and it's not about fixing glitches in the IT system. It's about how they blend technology with sustainability, how you blend technology with transportation, and it's a long-term, future-thinking group. And as Mike pointed out earlier, they don't go far afield. They stay focused on what they need to talk about, and they've been a very productive and efficient committee, and I appreciate the work that they've done. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, committee members.
Yeah, as do all of us. We really appreciate it, and that you've been able to keep your members together here is that's a sign of a good functioning group. So thank you. Yes, Janet.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing, that this is I can profess to know not a lot about what's in here, but I like the way that it was written. I could understand everything that you were saying about where you were heading. I think this list is wonderful. It kind of covers everything that I would know about. We've talked about the broadband and the black fiber for ages, so I was very happy to see that on here. I love that you've included the future of the library and what it might be, so I think that this is a really good list. You have my full support, and I want to thank you for everything you're doing for the city.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion to set them off to work. And there's a second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
guys.
thank you to the committee.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, presentation by Mr. Chris Busk. Chris. Oh, and Matt. He's like, what about me?
Followed up with.
What about me? I know. And the shirt matches the greenery.
Lost him. Where is he?
Very nice.
Oh, there he
No,
is.
they're
He
both
disappeared.
wearing
He's like
green shirts.
camouflage.
They both have the green shirts on. They both got tree green on.
I thought I would just kick it off. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Today we are presenting the 20% design plans for US 41. Staff's been working with Mr. Busk, and we're ready to move forward and complete the design and be able to take that project to construction. In addition, we've contracted with him for East Terry Street per council's direction from the December 15th meeting. So we are working on those two projects and ready to move forward. And without further ado, I thought I'd let Chris present what US 41 typically will look like if we move forward with this design.
Thank you very much.
And Nelson, council members.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've worked a number of
And
months.
you have a very soft voice, so I'm going to ask you to pull that right up there,
Okay.
okay? Because I want everybody to hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been working a number of months with Brad Browning and Matt Feeney on the roadway medians and right-of-way. And, you know, as a landscape architect working in Naples and the Fort Myers, the general area, we've done a lot of research on different plant materials since I have a degree in horticulture as well as landscape architecture. And, you know, we have a wonderful palette of materials we can use here. Some items are a little bit more difficult to maintain. So when we look at these medians and how to approach the design elements of what the roadway should look like, we're also thinking about long-term maintenance and how you're going to take care of them. I've done a lot of I'm just going to give you a little background. I've done a lot of research with Pam Lulich out of Collier County, and she maintains all the medians that have been developed in Collier County. And we've been on numerous outings and pinpointed issues with maintenance and how to take care of these medians, because we can design a wonderful landscape, but the true test of the landscape is how it works over time. And I have been designing and building gardens in Naples for 30 years, and I have the research from maintaining those gardens. So with that in mind, what you're seeing here is a plan view on the bottom there it says US 41 northbound to Bonita Beach Road. We are taking off from where Collier County ends and Lee County begins. And what you see through a number of the medians that run through Collier County is there's just different palm species that are used. We use palms for accents, trees for an overall long-term solution to soften the views down the roadways. And then we have several accent materials, accent palms, flowering trees, flowering shrubs, and ground covers, just to mention a few of the elements we work with. So when we focus on what's happening from Collier County going into Lee County into Bonita, we're going to have a little bit of a blend. What you see on the roadways there are foxtail palms primarily. There's not a lot in the medians. So we're actually going to use some of the foxtail palms you see in the middle median. We're not use them we're using them more in a stylized fashion, where you're going to actually have a pair of foxtails. If you see the left graphic section, you see the two foxtail palms with a specimen tree in between. Well, that's a specimen small-scale tree like a guava or ligustrum that we'll use to soften the views going down the median, and so you don't have clear view to the vehicles and the approaching lanes. And then you also have the smaller accent materials. We'll use things like the Cataractarum palm, the cat palm, and some ground covers that are low maintenance. We noticed that, so in Collier County, they've had a lot of issues with ground covers and shrubs in the medians, and they've had a hard time maintaining certain things. In the medians, it's most noticeable in the medians because some of the maintenance, they're actually trimming the shrubs with just a vertical cut, and it makes it very difficult to manage over time. Our job as landscape architects and planners of the roadways is to design a system that works over time and also works for the maintenance. I'll mention the maintenance because maintenance is everything after we finish. We have some challenges on the roadway right-of-ways. We would like to screen some of the businesses that don't have proper landscaping, and we're going to do that with canopy trees. What's shown in these drawings to the right upper elevation, you're seeing two canopy trees. These are actually black olive, shady-lated black olive trees, which have a wonderful color, and their reflective foliage is a nice contrast to the royal palms you'll see on either end there. The royal palms, in a number of areas, we're going to use them as a key tie-in element, and the canopies that you'll see are repeating canopy on each side. We won't be using royal palms in the center of the medians because there's just not enough room for a vertical rocket to go straight up. We will use things like the foxtail palms because there's a slower growth palm, and I think you'll get the benefit out of elements like that. Other things we're going to use, we have a lot of when you drive through the roadways of Bonita, you'll see we've had to handle. The city has a lot of swales that are existing there. There's some really deep swales, there's some wet swales, and I think I mentioned this once before. We're going to need to landscape those swales because if we don't landscape in front of along the roadway edge and next to the property owners of commercial properties, that's the way we can actually hide some of the bad elements that you see along the roadways of Bonita. So we have elements. We're going to be using native shrubs and accent materials. I brought my water this time. We'll be using native sea grape, native palmetto, because we have a lot of the slopes that you'll see on the back side of the swales. They won't go away if we just do a street tree planting, and we have the palms, like let's say in this instance that you're seeing in the drawing above there. Basically, the royal palms in a lot of the areas we're going to be working in, we'll be 100 feet on center. And in a lot of the areas, the trees will be placed in between those. And this section here you're seeing is actually a northbound to Bonita Beach Road. We have a lot more to screen there. I mean, you have open views of some major commercial establishments there. And so we're using more density of trees than we normally would down a regular roadway. Normally we'll have just one canopy tree between the two royals, palms you're seeing here. Hold on a second. Excuse me. So as an underlying element, we will have palms that will be immediate when we do landscape and we install the roadways. What's important about landscapes is you don't have time to wait for a finished look. We have to actually make it look finished when it's done. What we do is we economize in ground covers that we're going to be specifying and accent materials. We will be putting the palms in at a good size where you actually notice the impact when we first finish. And then the trees, of course, will grow over time. The flowering trees as well, you purchase them from nurseries at a certain size, and they're good value for installation. So what we're developing is a rhythm of a background planting. As you go down the road, where you see green, and you have the infrastructure of small scale or large scale trees and small scale trees, and then hiding the swales is one of the largest jobs that we have to do. Whether people really see that, notice that when they're driving. If they really look, that's what a big part of our landscape is really softening those, and I think it's gonna reduce the maintenance over time of people having to mow that all the time, because we want to use ground covers that'll fill in the whole area. We will have some sod areas running through the medians I think that's actually, in the medians, it's actually a lower maintenance item than a shrub or a ground cover, believe it or not. Except for the fact that sod takes about 5 times as much water. So we're careful about how much we put in, but it's really a balance of everything. And where we have a number of medians already landscaped in Bonita, going down 41, there were a number of areas that had the paved, you'll see in the plan view, you'll see the median has a few of the areas that have paving blocks going through there that are already there. We're going to leave all those in place, and we're going to plant our trees, basically, our small scale trees 40 feet on center, which when you're driving, that's enough distance to get a real impact of what's happening there. But it'll be full. We'll have color. We'll be leaving some of the color that's actually implemented there now with the dwarf bougainvillea. It is color, but we'll provide color with society garlic and other elements that are there. There is some existing there. We will use some low maintenance ground covers like junipers that will last over time. We'll be doing some grading to improve the drainage of some of those median islands, and that will improve the growth of the material that we propose there. So, going through a design process of everything actually changes. It's not the same as you go from Collier County into Lee County. We have some major challenges as we go into the different developments that are on either side. We'll be mimicking some of the native materials that you'll see at Bonita Bay. Our sections don't show that here, but we will use sable palms in some areas because they're low maintenance. They're going to be there pretty much forever. We use those, and it won't be all the same depending on what's near the roadways we're designing. So it's not meant. This is just meant to show you one part that we're showing you as we go into Lee County, into Bonita, into our Bonita city, and I think it's going to be a beautiful change. I mean, you'll notice right away, based on the accents and all the things that are missing, and there's actually no planting on the right of way. So when we enhance this, it's going to be not only treating the medians, which don't have any canopy trees in them in this area. It'll be just a remarkable change, and
Chris?
something that yes.
Me.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to just say that I really commend that you're looking into maintenance and that you're taking that into consideration and seeing what other people have done, so you're not reinventing the wheel and going forward with this project. So I think this is amazing, and I think, is staff looking for us to make a motion to authorize this
The additional
for the work to
expenditures,
go?
that's correct.
I would love to make that motion and see this plan continue along US 41 and the other arterial roads.
Yes, of course.
Okay, good, good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Before we do that, do you have anything else that you'd like to add that's of importance? Like if you want a helicopter landing or pad or something that Janet should know about before we...
No, you know, I was going to mention that, but I'm glad you brought it up. Matt and I just had discussion. Was that too much?
No, that's all right. That's too much information.
No, I just wanted to tell you Matt asked me if we were going to help him with the maintenance, and that's really part of my business that I do on a day-to-day basis. And when we design the landscapes, we actually take care of the maintenance as soon as the job is installed. We install the plant material and we maintain it. I'm a full-service landscape company, which is really rare in our industry. You're either a landscape architect or you're a landscape contractor, and the two usually don't mix that well. But I love the excitement of actually designing it and then carrying through with actually putting and hand placing the materials, which is I'm here to help the city do it just like I do in my own jobs, and then follow through in the maintenance wherever I can. If we need to be part of your maintenance program for the first year or how many years after that, I'm here to help you because it's our city together, and I'm so excited to work on it.
Thank you so
Well, good.
much.
Well, we really appreciate it, and I know it'll look good because we're going to put your name out there. Chris did this.
Right.
So, okay?
That's
So, yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, it looks nice. Good work. It looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Good work. But it doesn't look grand to me. Am I missing something?
Well, you know what? We didn't put the grand. The grandest plan of the design is really around the intersections. It's around the bridge, and I didn't want to just have one thing there that would overshadow everything else. So I gave you more of a vanilla look at this is like what the plan, immediate plans anywhere kind of down the highway, but we're going to have areas that are going to be different because of where they are. If they're near major developments like Bonita Bay, Pelican Landing, but what's interesting about this is you have a main system, and then you add all the fun things to it. Like we're going to be adding the date palms. I mean, not just the Sylvester, which is actually a smaller palm everybody's using now, but we're going to implement the original Canary Island date palm, which has the beautiful trunks, the pineapple trunks, and what you're not seeing in so many of these plantings is the flowering trees and some of the flowering plants, and they're a little difficult. But what we're going to do is use them in more of a small tree kind of effect, where it's not a lot of maintenance as a ground cover, and we won't be doing annuals, but unless it's in the front of the city, something a real high impact area. But I'm here to help y'all get. You're right. We didn't show the most grand of plans because we're going to be using silver Bismarckia palms. We're using some exotic things, but it's not in the whole thing. I wouldn't do that to you everywhere because it would just be too much. But we're going to be accenting when you slow down at certain intersections where the main intersections are. There's going to be a lot of different things that show you accent and rhythm and style. A lot of it's happening though at intersections because we have the ground area. People are sitting there looking, and that's where that'll happen.
Okay.
I'll be ready to see the grand. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Anything? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Chris,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Okay, I think that is all for our presentations and proclamations, and we are to the consent agenda. Council, we have, a whopping one thing on our
Motion to approve.
consent agenda, something to do with the Easter
I was going
Bunny.
to pull that one, but...
Were you gonna hold that one up? Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the Easter egg hunt? I didn't think so. Roll call, please.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Okay, and we are to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak this time, if you would want to wander up here in the dark. Go ahead.
Don't tell me.
Bill,
Get
Bill,
up and do it.
come on. Sorry. Go right ahead. Anything through city business, please come forward.
Jude Reichenthal again from Old Bonita. I'd like to address some of the things that Mr. Parton said earlier. His figures, by the way, even according to Mr. Parton's figures, we gave away $2.5 million to RCS. So let's start with that, which he didn't mention. However, his figures are based on a chart of how much water, how much effluent water is available for RCS. That chart was disavowed by Debbie Bautista. I questioned her on it during the annual meeting. I said, this is contradicted by your financial statement. She said, well, I didn't do the chart. And no one else from BSU stood up to defend that chart. So that's what he's telling you. He's basing this on figures that he can't defend. That's number one. Some more issues here. As far as storing water, I question the need for storing water for several reasons. First of all, during the summer, there are less people here, so less reclaimed water is produced. Yes, there's less water needed, but less is produced. Okay. Number two, the capacity to produce reclaimed water does not meet the demand, according to Mr. Parton. Therefore, we don't need to store it. Okay, we just produced. If we had pipes running into Old Bonita, we'd be piping it everywhere. It'd be used up. Don't need to store it. So I question the need for storage. Mr. Parton is obfuscating. He's not telling you the truth. Now, as far as running pipes and producing facilities to have this reclaimed water, I don't know of any utility that demands that of people, communities, that you run pipes to. It's a utility's job to do this sort of thing. Where is he coming from? Give me an example. Let him give me an example of any utility that has people running their own pipes. That's nonsense. Now, as far as the Naples not running reclaimed water to all their people, there's an article in the Naples Daily News, which I would send you a link to that article if you allowed that. But right now, I can't send the City Council any links because links are removed when you send an email to City Council. Your IT department has seen to that, so you'll have to look up that link for yourself. But Naples is providing reclaimed water to the bulk of their population, except to maybe some outlying people. So again, he's misleading you on that one. I'd like to call your attention to an article in the Spotlight magazine on this issue, which should be available on the stands today or tomorrow. Please have a look at it. It seems like the Naples Daily News and the news press have not filled their responsibility of being investigative, doing some investigative reporting on this subject and representing the interests of the people here. And last but not least, I'd like to bring to your attention a major fault that happened when the City Council required BSU to put in a sewer system. It did not require them to put in reclaimed water pipes, as Mr. Lonkart has suggested. It should have required them to do so. They should have suggested that to the city to do so. That was a fault of the City Council, and there's only one member here who is still sitting from that council, which you saw on that chart before, that cute little City Council that didn't do their job. You should consider your responsibility today, since you didn't do your job then, not you personally, but the City Council, and do it now. Get reclaimed water to the people of Bonita. Put BSU under city administration technically so that we can get information from them. They can't hide and obscure things as they're doing now and lying. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Deborah McLean, publisher of the Banana Peel, and I interview a lot of people over the years, and I had a good conversation with Fred Forbes. I believe he was the president or may still be the president of Hunters Ridge. They did a very in-depth study on the cost of putting in reclaimed water into Hunters Ridge, and they explained to me that currently, and I don't know if you've all been there, it's simply beautiful and well-maintained and green, and this is a lower to middle income bracket retirement community. They pay $20,000 a year to maintain their pump house and pay the electricity, and it equates to about $20 a year per person on their Master Homeowners Association. And at the time that we had the conversation, they had opted not to install the necessary required things. It's not just BSU's requirements, DEP and water storage and lining lakes that they didn't have now. It would cost $750,000 just to bring it up to snuff, and then they would have to pay for water that they're not paying for now. So that's why Hunters Ridge doesn't do it. And that's why Citrus Park really doesn't want to do it, because they're not middle or lower middle class. They're fixed income poor people. mostly in those little mobile homes or manufactured homes. There are nice homes there, don't get me wrong, there's wealthy people there also. But that's why they don't want to join, because the costs are prohibitive. And there might have been one point that I heard today that in the original negotiations, they should have required the pipe be laid at the same time when the franchise was awarded. And I feel the same way about the Comcast contract. We were a virgin city and made two major errors, three. One was Florida Power and Light, one was Comcast, and one was perhaps laying the infrastructure for reclaimed water. But we have to honor the contract, we have to honor the franchise, and we've seen waves of hatred come before the city. We've seen it before the fire department, and now it's BSU, and it's that same group of old cranks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Oh, easy, easy.
Crank number one's ahead of you.
Okay. Easy.
I take personal umbrage with her remarks. I'm old, but I'm not a crank.
Eddie.
And I want to comment on Mr. Parson. I think he was extremely vague, lack of specificity, and the absence of critical information when he spoke to you. My name is Ed Fitzgerald. I'm here today for the second time in 10 months to demand an investigation into Bonita Springs Company operations, particularly in their failure to comply with their franchise. Going back in the early 80s, when reclaimed water started becoming important, there was two things they could do. One is mandated in their franchise, is install pipes in the street. She says there was no mandate. It's in their franchise. Put pipes in the street and distribute water to all homes in all communities. By the way, that's a profit-making operation. You float a bond, put the pipes in the street, make the distribution system there, let people hook up and pay to hook up, charge them enough money to pay for the bond and make a profit. Large, much greater profit than they'll ever make from RCS. RCS is a very questionable deal, believe me. And here's the other important part. 1985, BSU decided to go to RCS without permission of the county commissioners. The franchise says you must get permission to alter, change, amend, or do anything with the franchise. They did not get permission. They made a decision to do this without the approval of the county and without the approval of the people. And by the way, they didn't make this in one moment. There's evidence that RCS and BSU worked together for 5 years prior to 1991. In 1985, RCS came into existence, 5 years before they got the water. And in that same 5 years, they put in this pond without having a drop of water. They didn't get the water until 1991. By the way, where is the pond? The pond is on the property of BSU. It's adjacent to the plant. I believe that BSU gave them that lot, that pond. By the way, during those 5 years, BSU should have been installing pipes in the street. 1985 to 1991, the city was growing. You could have easily put the pipes in the street, made a lot of money. BSU also failed in their fiduciary responsibility to the members of BSU. They decided that the members didn't deserve the water. It was more important to facilitate an easy operation to get rid of the water. It works out for BSU. They don't have to put pipes in the street. They don't have to do anything. But that's not their function, to make it easy for them. Their function is to live into the franchise, to provide water, distribution water, reclaimed water, sewer water, and fresh water too. I love that light.
So do I.
By the way, I know that. I know that, Mr. Mayor. Let me tell you some of the other things they've done. RCS gets out and convinces the people of Bonita Springs that they did the right thing by saying to them, we offered you the water. We would have given you reclaimed water. All you have to do is pay for it. Well, my friend could not give them water. All the water was committed in 1991 to somebody else, RCS. You can't give it to two people. Secondly, it's probably illegal for the installation of public infrastructure to be owned by the individual owner. Installation of public infrastructure is the sole responsibility of the franchise company. By the way, part of your discussion today is water planning for the future. Well, you're not going to plan anything with water, extra water coming out of RCS's use of reclaimed water.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, and you welcome to stick around and
I will
and-
come around.
and finish up at the end of the meeting. All right? Thank you very much, sir.
Second time I was here, no response the first time. No one from BSU or RCS, not BSU, BSU or this city council ever responded to similar claims. I find that offensive. And I find you have a member here, Mr. McIntosh, who was a representative of BSU on their board of directors.
We have
I
two
think
there.
I was entitled to.
Two of us, yeah.
I know. And you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, thank you.
were there when they signed
Yes, I was.
the 1991 agreement.
I was right there.
You know all of these things that I mentioned.
Okay. Come on up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ron Pure, Bonita Springs, and I might add TAG. And TAG just took a demeaning blow below our belt by one of the speakers. There's no hate here. We brought to the fore, for example, over the years, the obscene pensions that BSFD were exposed to and they felt entitled to, until we started advertising and promoting the fact that they were way above most other places, not only in the state of Florida, but in the United States of America. That's the fire district. Additionally, well, we could talk about anything at this point, right? Has anyone brought to the fore at this meeting that there are some new employees that are going to be on the payroll as a result of what you guys have been talking about? And if in fact that there are, would you please give it to the public's attention during this meeting and spell out what we're looking at as far as extra dollars in the budget is concerned? Now, with respect to BSU, Fred, the executive officer, spoke earlier about plugging into the average of Collier and Lee County on establishing rates for RCS. Now, we learned over the past recent years that Lee County, for example, had people online getting reusable water, gray water, whatever you call it, for irrigation for nothing. So if you add 0 to the equation and you start averaging figures, or 10 cents per 1,000 gallons or 20 cents, I mean, you're talking about a low number. Lee also was told, Lee County that is, was also told by a consulting firm to increase their rates years ago. They dragged their feet, like as they have in the past with respect to their impact fees in Lee County. Woefully behind the curve, terribly behind what our neighboring county does, Collier County, with respect to impact fees as a government entity. I'm not talking about water at this point, at that point. You guys approved a franchise not long ago, an extension for BSU. You didn't ask any of the questions that we brought to the fore, and you should have. And you should have implemented them or had that company implement them, because it would have improved the situation for, in many cases, the ratepayers, the customers, the members, which is what I am, and many of the folks in this audience are today. Four years ago, they wanted a rate increase. This council, or many of the members on this council, fortunately opposed it for the first time. They wanted a 3-year rate increase, which overlaps with Fred Parton's claim that they haven't had a rate increase in several years. Well, in fact, that was only due finally to a positive vote by this council, who caught on to what TAG was promoting, and that is that they didn't need a rate increase because they had enormous surplus at that time, and they still do. We also recommended that they refinance a lot of their debt, et cetera. The president didn't point us out in the back of the room as being highly responsible, in our opinion, for those kinds of maneuvers that have strengthened their position in the marketplace. We also think they should make a case for themselves at S&P to improve their credit rating, not from AA, but to AAA, because I think that they might show realistically that this town is in healthy shape with respect to the profile of its residents, their ability to pay bills, all bills, and the fact that they're still carrying enormous surplus. And also, just a note about Comcast. The tech group that presented to you folks today some new stuff, some of it real good. What's still off the table there, unfortunately, is the concept of public access television, which has never been delivered by the city and never been imposed on Comcast. And they should still be looking at getting a discount for the senior citizens in this county that are not on the bulk agreements and that kind of thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bureau.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else this time, please come forward. Hello.
Good morning. For the record, Nicole Johnson here on behalf of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. And I want to speak briefly today about the pollution reduction requirements that are within the city currently. At the March 26th meeting, public comment was given stating, among other things, the Conservancy is a plaintiff with other environmental groups in suing the EPA over the state FDEP nutrient reduction plans, including the program this city operates under. If they prevail, it will cost the city a lot of money. Ask your staff. This is a factually incorrect statement. The Imperial River was already violating state water quality standards for low dissolved oxygen based on total nitrogen being the causative pollutant, as well as having a corresponding total maximum daily load, or TMDL, reduction. Therefore, the proposed general numeric nutrient criteria that are the subject of the recently referenced litigation have no bearing on the Basin Management Action Plan requirements for the existing TMDL, which FDEP has established as a water body specific restoration plan for the Imperial River. As a result, there is no additional cost or restrictions that will apply to the basin as a result of the EPA suit, whichever way it is settled. The Conservancy does not stand to financially benefit in any event related to whether one set of standards or another is used. The Conservancy's objective is simply to support the restoration of water quality to allow for the safe use of Bonita Springs waters designated for drinking, swimming, and fishing, as well as other waters throughout Florida. Costs associated with meeting such standards only stand to benefit the residents and visitors of Bonita Springs in protecting Bonita's quality of life and economy. But I do agree, ask your staff this question, or ask the Citizens Water Task Force. We have been up to our eyeballs in looking at TMDLs and BMAPs and this required reduction of total nitrogen of 26.5% for the city. We're very familiar with that. I'm going to submit the substance of my comments for the record and also include it in the next Water Task Force agenda packet, since Ms. McGrath's comments were included in our last packet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
Good morning, Mary Mima, 38-year resident of Bonita Springs. And I come to you this morning as the volunteer event chair for Relay for Life Bonita Springs Estero, which is taking place at Riverside Park. Thank you to the city. On April 26th, starting at 4 p.m., going till 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, April 27th. We hope to see you all come out. We want to get survivors out there, honor them, support all those that we have lost to cancer, and raise some money and celebrate life. So hope to see you all there.
Thank you very much, Mary. Anyone else this time, please come forward. Seeing none. Okay, everyone, we're gonna that's it for public comment at this time. Let's take a 10-minute break. Could everyone be back in their seats?